Champions, our guest today is National Master Ben Johnson, the host of the widely popular Perpetual Chess podcast. Ben has interviewed diverse spectrum of guests, from adult improvers to masters, grandmasters, and even world champions, spanning across hundreds of episodes. I've had the privilege of being a guest on his show too, and this time the roles are reversed. I'm eager to learn not only what he has learned from all those great minds and put in his new book, but also intrigued by how he maintained the discipline of producing a new episode every week. I cannot do that. And he did it for 7 years. What he did when the motivation waned, how he overcame these fears and many other things that resonates with chess lovers' journey. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and to change the places where now I will be the host and I will interview you.
Of course, Avtuk. Happy to do it and happy to sit back and just relax and answer some questions for once.
For once, yeah, it's strange, yeah, now when you are not going to ask the questions, but you are going to answer.
Yeah, honestly, I'm more comfortable asking the questions at this point, but happy to do it. Let's get into it.
Okay, I will ask some easy questions, some challenging, so
Okay.
be ready. It was back 2018. My advisor called me, who was helping me to start Chessmode. I was just starting, and he said, "You know what, Avo, you need to start a chess podcast." 2018, and my first question was not why to start chess podcast, but it was, what is podcast? I had no idea what is podcast. So explain me the idea, the concept, and said like probably nobody does it in chess industry. This is something new, etc. I said like, wait. Let me see. Let me Google a little bit and see if nobody does it. And if somebody does it good, somebody does it well, there is no problem in that industry. There is no gap. No, I will not start. And then I searched a little bit, and then I found Perpetual Chess Podcast. Then I found you, and they felt like, no, wait, this guy does it great. There is no any gap, and this is how first I met you, and I messaged you like, Ben, I just found you. You are doing a good job. Do you remember it? The message.
Oh,
My
of course.
first message.
Yeah, I figured that's where this was going. Yeah, I do remember.
Yeah. So 2018, I had like no idea what is podcast. Like now there are podcasts, many podcasts. Now there are many chess podcasts. But you were the first. And how did you come up with the idea? Why did you start Perpetual Chess Podcast?
Well, we've got some similarities in our background, Avtik. I know we both played some poker at times. And I got back into chess in 2016, and I was doing a lot of school programs around where I lived at the time, Pittsburgh. And I, unlike you, I was an early adopter of podcasts. I've probably been listening for 10 years now. So at some point, I became aware that there weren't that many chess podcasts. And the more I got back into chess, the more I wanted to use that time where I'm driving around to learn more about the game and learn more about the personalities. And there wasn't much else happening in terms of people doing it. So eventually it's one of those things where, if you want something done, you got to do it yourself. And I didn't feel like I didn't necessarily feel like I was the best person to do it, but I was willing to put in the work. So here I am.
You put lots of work, yep, and it's from you changed your careers a few times, right? You tried to, like, you were a chess player, then poker. You also tried to study law, right?
So I almost studied law in my days out of university in my 20s, and then switched to teaching chess. While I was applying to law school, I just decided I didn't want to do it. And it's funny because I worked in a law office for a couple of years, and all the lawyers at this law office, they were all making a lot of money, but they all said, "Don't go to law school. Don't go to law school." And no, none of the kids would listen. I mean, I'm calling myself a kid. I was like 23, and I was one of them. I didn't know what else to do. So eventually I decided to apply to law school, but only when I worked in another field, when I started teaching chess for this organization called Chess in the Schools, and saw like a job that actually animated me. That was when I decided not to go to law school. It wasn't just by being told.
And recently that I found that lawyers are one of the highest paid professionals, but at the same time, with statistics, they are the most unhappy people. Was new for me.
At least in the US, yeah, that's definitely been the experience. It's pretty, and there are happy lawyers out there. God bless them, and I do think it's a very respectable field. Um, but there are a lot of unhappy lawyers too.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I first met the lawyer who is helping me with Trustmoot, and he became my very good friend. When I first met him, like, man, you don't like at all as a lawyer. You are having fun. You are driving this. You are driving an airplane. You are having all this fun. So I was very happy to find a man who is not just professional, good, but also having fun. So you didn't want to go with that way, and you wanted to pursue what you are loving. And how was it when you switched to poker? Like your family was okay with that? Because my family was not okay with that.
Yeah, well, they had time to get used to it. And I was one of these people, I have kind of an independent streak. I always, from the time I got out of college, I was thinking like I'm not going to have like a typical path. Now, I did need a job, so I ended up getting a job in a law office, but I did have that streak in me where I was looking for something different. I didn't feel like I was cut out for the 9 to 5 life. And I'm old, so I saw the movie Rounders when it came out. So this is like original poker generation, basically. But it was chess, part of a sort of unifying thread in my life is the people who also got into poker at the same time were my friends who were all chess players. Like I am Greg Shahade and FIDE Master Donnie Ariel. Even I went to college. I grew up in Philadelphia, went to college in California, other side of the country. And one of my best friends from college ended up being like one of the only chess players there. And he got into poker at the same time. A bunch of us ended up becoming pretty successful as pros because we had that sort of chess player's mindset of go over your games, take responsibility for your results, that sort of stuff. And because we were early adopters and the competition wasn't so tough, I eventually did, as you say, transition from doing chess stuff to poker I played professionally for 7 years.
And then the competition become tougher, and this is when you switched back to chess coaching.
Well, that was part of it. The competition did become tougher, but also here in the US, for a long time, it was not clear if you were allowed to play online poker. But then what all the poker players call Black Friday happened in 2011, where they closed all the sites and were like, oh, I guess we're not allowed to play. And at that point, I'd had a great run, but I wasn't making as much money as I used to, and I was pretty burnt out. So I was kind of ready for a change. So I wasn't too distraught. I took that as a signal. But before I got back into chess, I had made some money. I'd done pretty well in those years. I had sort of delusions of grandeur. So I decided I'm going to take the money I've made, try to trade it independently. And I spent many years doing that, studied. And I didn't lose all my money or anything, but I wasn't really making money either. It turned out that that's where the real sharks are. Eventually I needed to, we had kids. And I needed, I could still do trading stuff, but I needed to get back to work to a reliable income. And that was when I got back into chess in 2016.
So when you started the Perpetual podcast, you were coaching and also starting the podcast at this simultaneously, right?
Yeah, I had been back to coaching for about a year when I started Perpetual Chess.
How did you come up with the idea, Perpetual Chess podcast?
Well, when I was
from the name, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it took me probably 6 months I had the idea very early on from when I got back into chess, because like I said, I was a podcast listener. So I would think about it and I'm like, why doesn't this exist? So sometimes I would brainstorm names, and once I thought of that one, I was like, that's it. So I even months before I did it, I knew what the name would be if I did it.
And 2016 you started, right?
Yep.
And you kept once a week episode?
Yep. Yeah.
This is incredible. Like once a week, that's like 7 years.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, Avtik, I love it. Like I don't even like taking weeks off. I mean, it's only 1 hour to 90 minutes per week of recording. And of course, there's a lot of work behind the scenes, but I mean, there's just so many interesting stories in the chess world that I feel like I've only scratched the surface.
Okay, so we are getting to the interesting part. Like you said, you love it, but first of all, let's start with the discipline part. Like 7 years, once a week episode. How did you keep discipline? I guess one reason was love, because you were just loving it. You were not doing it because you have to, but it was coming from inside, from your heart, right? Am I right?
Yeah, for sure.
Share the other thing, because the way the way you keep this discipline, I think many chess lovers would love your tips, so they can also keep the discipline, not for chess podcast maybe, but they are chess lives, because often chess
Right.
players are having this struggle.
Well, it's because I'm really enthusiastic about it. And people who listen to me on Perpetual Chess will know that when it comes to chess study, I often say I'm not the most disciplined. Even when it comes to like habits away from the board, I have periods of discipline and periods where my discipline kind of goes away. But this has become basically a full-time job for me. I would like to always do it. I don't have plans to do anything else. You don't get rich from it, but I'm able to make a living. So I don't take it for granted. So to me, every once in a while, like if your schedule sneaks up on you, I'm sure you're experiencing this already. Like you feel like you need to put something out, and like that can be a bit stressful when that happens. And that mainly happens, like I usually try to stay out in front of scheduling guests, but sometimes it's just times aren't working out and stuff. And meanwhile, you need to record an interview, that sort of thing. So that sort of thing does happen. But I mean, it's honestly like, 90 to 95% of the time, it's not a chore to record a podcast.
They are saying, yeah, that one of the best ways to stop selling your time and going to work and job, yeah, is just loving what you are doing, and then you are not selling your time, and then you are free, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. But like you said, when you started Chess Mood and looked into chess podcasts, like I was more or less first to market. I mean, there was the Full English Breakfast. They had kind of a different format. They were kind of riffing on the chess news, and they were already kind of slowing down by the time I came. There were no chess interviews shows. So I mean, it's also like you couldn't start doing what I was doing now. You would have to be passionate about something else. I mean, and you could do it. It's just it might not end up becoming a job. And who's to say if I'll be able to do this like as a job forever? But as long as I'm able to make some money, I'd like to do it for as long as I can. I mean, and not to be crass about it in terms of the money. It's just when you have a family, like you've got to account for the hours you spend.
It's so cool. And people like you, these are the people whom I call successful people, and not the people who are in the top 10 in their profession or world champions, when often they are doing what they are not loving, and they are selling their time, and they are just very outcome obsessed. And in your case, you are just loving what you are doing. You are having fun, and at the same time you're helping your family. This is very cool, man. This, like, you could do so many things, and you switch to doing what you are loving. This is incredible.
Well, it's kind of you to say, but there is that voice in my head, like having bounced around in careers, I certainly have times where I think like, what if I had just like studied computer programming when I was 23, and like had a steady career arc from there? Maybe that would have been a gratifying career too. So by no means do I feel like I necessarily, that this is a path for everyone, but yeah, I mean, to be happy.
That's for you.
Yeah, to be happy
Yeah.
in your work life is not something to take for granted. So I'm grateful for sure.
Now I guess that if you invite like any grandmasters, they will happily probably come and like, yeah, this is Ben Johnson, this is Perpetual Chess. He had world champions. But the first steps when you just started, you didn't know many people. People didn't know you. I think that was very challenging. Yes, tell about that. Like, how did you start? The first steps.
Yeah, well, it was not as hard as you would think. If anything, like it's kind of been steady all along. There's still people who say no or don't respond if you ask for an interview. But there were people willing to do it right away. Partially, there were a few reasons. Number one, I mean, chess was just a smaller world back then. So I think even top players weren't getting like besieged with interview requests. So they were generally happy to do it. I think some of them may have recognized that this was something that was good for the chess world generally. But the other thing, as you know, Optic, the chess world is very small. So even though I'm like a lowly, weak USCF master when it comes to chess playing, I've got some well-known friends in the chess world who I've had for decades. So that was part of my thinking, even going into the podcast. I mean, I've both Greg and Jennifer Shahade are two of my best friends in the world. Through them, I met Jan Gustafsson 25 years ago or something crazy like that. I'm old friends with Mike Klein, who's obviously big part of Chess Kid and chess.com. Ben Feingold, I met through chess circles 25 years ago. So even though I myself am not a grandmaster, especially in the sort of New York to Philly chess circles in my generation, I felt like I knew a good number of people when I started. And I think that helped, in addition to just people being chess players, being kind and generous and wanting to tell their stories.
So it's like your life motto, which I found somewhere you shared. Life is about the quality of your relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So, right. So this
Uh-huh.
this is how it helped you, yeah, to start, and this is what you keep.
Yeah,
Relationships.
I gotta shout out my friend Donnie, because he's the one who always used to say that. Just in case he catches this, I can't leave that unattributed.
Which one? Danny?
Donnie Ariel, he's a FIDE master, but another former poker pro, and he used to, we used to massive upswings, and you know how it is in poker, big upswings, big downswings. In the macro, the graph is going up, but when you're going through it and you're just losing day after day, it feels it feels like the world's crashing down on you. And in those moments, Donnie would say, just one thing to keep in mind: life is about the quality of your relationships.
I liked it and took it too. Yeah.
Yeah, but easier
Which
to say than to live.
true. When you started, did you have a fear like it will not succeed? A perpetual podcast.
Well, I didn't really care so much about that. It's more just I'm an introvert by nature. In my experience, I feel like a lot of chess players are. So yeah, it was just really hard to take the first few steps. Once I got going, the challenges of that kind of stuff went away very quickly, and I wasn't really worried about failure. I just figured I have nothing to lose. But just pulling the trigger was the hardest part, just actually starting. And, you hear that advice from entrepreneurs all the time, or, people in creative pursuits. They always say, you've just got to start. And, luckily I had heard that advice and was able to heed it, because it's definitely been my experience as well.
Recording the first episode was the toughest.
It was just a terrible episode. I mean, it wasn't tough because I did it with my friend Greg Shahade, so it was easy in that sense because I'm comfortable, but I had no idea what I was doing. He's not really used to being interviewed, so it's not my proudest work, but it wasn't like challenging to do as it would be with a stranger.
One of the advice I have for beginners is just play, and your game 1000 will be much better than your first game. So many
Right.
are afraid, they are just learning, and I'm afraid to play. So just play yours. You will see this is progress. So the first step is often very tough to do. Did you have problems to procrastinate, like starting the first episode
Oh, for sure.
when you had when
Yeah.
you had like, let me buy the microphone, let me do that, and you are procrastinating that, and not starting. Some inside fear is there.
Oh, for sure. And I recorded 3 episodes before I launched the podcast, with Greg Shahade and Jan Gustafsson and Nazi Pakidze, who was the one person I didn't know, but we thought it would be better. Like I was talking, Greg helped me, gave me some counsel when I was trying to, gather my energy to start it. And we felt like it would be better to have someone that wasn't just like a friend, So he reached out to her and she agreed to do it. She was very, very gracious. But yeah, even when the interviews were recorded, like to actually release them, took like that was kind of the final step, and like that was like crossing the Rubicon. Once I actually released them, and something like 800, I still remember like 800 people listened to like the first episode with Greg in a couple of weeks, which is actually, that's a fair amount for for something that's no one knew who I was. Greg had a little bit, sorry, Greg, if you're listening, a little bit of notoriety in the chess world, but not like a superstar or anything. So that actually seemed good. So the hardest part was just releasing the first few episodes.
By the way, about Greg, he asked me to ask you, like, share something about NBA.
Uh-oh, I saw
Did
this.
you hit
Yeah.
someone during the NBA match? What happened?
So, okay. He said, so in the Facebook thread where on the Perpetual Chess Facebook group, Optic posted for people to share questions, and Greg's question was, have you ever attacked anyone for beating them at NBA Live, which is a video game that we used to play in high school? And Greg was better than me, and it was so frustrating because anyone who's seen Greg's like public persona talking trash to Lawrence Trent, like he's an excellent trash talker, and he was also just better than me at video games. And I'm not so competitive now. I'm 46, but like a lot of chess players, I was super competitive when I was younger. And at some point, I just got so mad, and I always felt like I was getting cheated by the game, which of course in hindsight, probably wasn't true. So at some point I like attacked him. I didn't like punch him in the face or throw him against the wall or something, but I may have thrown a remote at him or something. Definitely behavior I wouldn't condone today.
How old were you then?
Oh, it was in high school. I mean, I was probably 16, 17, something like that.
Okay, I hope Greg listened this and he doesn't have this feelings that I'm going to get them back.
No, he's I mean, he lived it. He already knows. I think he's forgiven me, but maybe not.
Like, I'm sure he did, because he himself asked to ask me this question. Ben, tell me about this. That as a chess player, like, we are competitive, and this is often the competitiveness of chess players. Often it's good, and often it is bad. Like when we are going to play once a week soccer game, we have every Saturday. We have in the evening we have soccer game, so it's our Chessmode team playing against other team every week.
Right.
Once a week we are doing, and it's so interesting. No matter how the opposite team is strong, no matter how good their players, how they are better than us, how we are getting pressed all the time during the game, like 99% of the times we are still winning. And I'm finding it in just one reason, because our team are chess players. We
Yeah.
are international masters, grandmasters, so we are competitive. Even if it's just soccer, just fun game to play, we are still have this competitiveness in us. Or if we are playing some video games here, if somebody out from the chess world, not chess player, we mostly like play differently. So this is the kind of advantage that with this competitiveness helps. But at the same time, I feel that many chess players, after playing this zero-sum harsh chess game, competitive, they struggle in life often, when instead of finding some win-win situations and instead of thinking collaborative, they are still continuing this competitive approach. So tell me, how did you find the balance?
I think I just got old. I think that was the solution for me. I was pretty competitive in everything I did, through my 20s to early 30s. And it might have really settled down when I had kids, which I had kids fairly late. I'll have to think about yeah, I had kids when I was like 36. So that's when it really settled down. So I don't feel like I have too much. I mean, I will say poker helped with that. Because you can't play poker for a living and not lose. I mean, chess, it's true too, but I wasn't at your level. I wasn't at the professional level. So the losing bothered me, but it was also like kind of expected. But in poker, as I mentioned earlier, you can't play for a living without having like, losing weeks, losing months. So at some point, if you're going to stay in that line of work, you need to sort of calibrate your competitive instincts.
People are asking me, uh, what was the biggest lesson you got from chess or from poker? Uh, I'm saying I have learned more lessons like that I need in life, and I took more lessons from poker. What do you answer to this question?
Wow, that's a tough one. I mean, they've both been so instrumental, and since chess came first, um, it kind of holds a special place in my heart because if it weren't for chess, I wouldn't have been able to have the success that I did in poker. But I mean, I will say that for kids, obviously, chess is a better game in terms of teaching life skills. But for poker, learning the ability to think probabilistically is something that many people just never learn. So I will say that probably has more practical utility than any single skill that chess teaches you.
Yeah, very good answer. It's in it for kids. It's much better to chess. Yeah, just think strategically. Um, why I say poker is I think it's more use. It gives more lessons to life because it seems to me it's more close to poker is more close to life because in chess you can just be good to make good decisions and you win. Poker is more like in life. You can still do a good decision. You can still play the hand in a best way, but you still lose, which
Yeah.
doesn't mean your move bad.
Yep. Yeah.
You should think in life like that. So if you did something nice, but at the end somebody betrayed, somebody did bad, it doesn't mean your initial move was bad. It was just good. You just need to do good moves in a row. And on the long run, you should think on the long run, on as you said, on probabilities.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When you put it like that, what it makes me realize is like with chess, it's kids and you want to teach kids that life is fair, and chess kind of teaches them that like you'll make decisions and there will be consequences based on the decisions you make. You want kids to think like, oh, okay, so it works linearly. If I make good decisions, good things will happen. But when you learn to play poker, you learn, oh, actually life is unfair, and that's a better long-term lesson to learn, but you can't teach it. You shouldn't teach it to like 7-year-olds, so yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. When you were successful at chess, you became a master. You were successful at poker. You were decent at stock, so you changed professions many times. Did it give you confidence that even if you start new podcasts that nobody like really do, like that confidence, did it help you? So does it help you in life that whatever you do, you will do good?
I don't necessarily feel that way. Yeah, I sort of feel like I'm just kind of fumbling around in the dark and it's worked out so far, but I don't necessarily feel like I have some master plan. And the struggles I felt when I tried to trade independently, like that was definitely sobering. That was in sports and basketball. Like if you make like 4 shots in a row, sometimes I don't know if you're a basketball fan, but sometimes you'll see like someone makes 3 shots in a row and then they're really getting confident. So then they'll pull up from like half court, and they think they're just going to make it because they've been making their previous shots. So they call that a heat check in basketball when you're like, okay, let's see how hot I am. So for me, trying to trade independently was kind of like a heat check. It was like a wake up call that like, no, you can't just like, suddenly try to independently work in the most competitive field in the world and expect success. Now, chess podcasting, I'm very grateful to have found an audience. I take pride in the work I do. I don't think I was great at the beginning. I hope that I'm pretty good after all these years. But it's not as competitive as something like competing in the financial markets. So, and not as financially lucrative either. So, you could say you're sort of swimming in a different pool.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. How many episodes did you have already?
I mean, the episode number is like 356, but then there's like 36 book reviews on top of over 400. We'll leave it at that.
Over 400.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. Oh, that's a big amount. And you had world champions. You had Kramnik, Anand, yeah. You had Caruana. So
Yeah.
many people. Uh, then often okay. I would not say I'm sure because it seems you loved it. Love this so much. Did you had days when you just didn't want to record an episode, but you have to?
For me, once I have an interview scheduled, I'm almost always excited to do it. What it can emailing people and trying to set up interviews and not knowing if they're going to reply, like that's the stuff that can get a little bit old. But basically, I'm always excited to hear someone's story and to talk about their lives and what's going on in the chess world. So yeah, it doesn't. There aren't too many days where I'm not excited in that regard. I can't even really think of any.
Did you have days when you were nervous before the episode?
I was nervous when I interviewed Judith Polgar. That was fairly early in the podcast life and within the first year. And she in particular, I mean, I'd already interviewed at that point, Sam Shankland and I'm sure some other pretty prominent players and creators. But she's just such a legend that I found her. I was nervous for that one. And of course, I was nervous for Viswanathan Anand, for the world champion, even more so than another world champion like Kramnik. There's something about the legendary status of Anand in particular that those were the two I was really nervous for. I can't, mostly I feel okay.
Do you have any advice for chess players who will ask this question? Like often they are nervous before the game. Do you have any tips, or you didn't figure it out yourself how to feel
Yeah,
that
I wrote
nervousness?
so yeah, I wrote about this in the book because it comes up a fair amount in the podcast. Um, and no one I've interviewed has really given advice to make it disappear. They all kind of say, including the aforementioned Viswanathan Anand, who told a story about what it felt like to be at the board and forgetting his prep because a Patreon sub on Perpetual Chess asked him about why he always looks so cool. And he said at sometimes when he's at the board, he feels terrified. He said, it's like he's seeing ghosts because you think, you thought you knew this line cold, but then you're sitting at the board and looking at the lines and you're like, well, what happens if he does this? And what happens if she does that? So I found that very relatable. And once Anand described the scale of the nerves that he still dealt with, I felt like, well, okay, it's hopeless for the rest of us. If he's still nervous, then the rest of us probably we just have to learn to live with it and try to channel it into positive energy. Jonathan Rowson in the Seven Deadly Chess Sins, or it might have been in Chess for Zebras, wrote about how the idea that like you want to feel nervous because that means you care. If you don't feel nervous, like that tells you that something's a bit off. That it's not consequential.
Um, True. If you are not nervous, if you are like often the world champions and grandmasters, top players are becoming the kids who are crying when they are losing and at their childhood when they are losing the games. Usually the kids who are not crying when they are losing, at the end, usually they are stopping at some point. Yeah. So you should cry. You should take it so badly that at the end you get so agree with that you have when you are nervous, it shows that that you care. But at the end, anyway, it can block you. Yeah, it's too much nervousness can block you.
Yeah,
So
for
anyway,
sure.
like, so is there something you are doing? Like, okay, it's you are about to click the recording button with Vishwanathan Anand, and there is nervousness inside you. What you do? Like drinking, breathing? How do you do that?
Well, it's not that terrifying. I mean, we're not performing like heart surgery or anything. So, at some point, you just click the button and start, and then it gets easier.
Um, to many of these questions that I had in my mind, including how to deal with nervousness, I I dive. I'm not sure to say deep, but some level of deep. Yeah. to study philosophy, to study spiritual stuff. Because what was frustrating for me is this. Often, indeed, you should cry, you should be nervous in order to get to the top. You should be often unsatisfied with whatever you achieve. So let's say you are a sprint runner, yeah, and you are running it in 9 seconds, and then you are like, no, this is bad. The next day you are running 8 and 9. No, this is bad. Then you are 8 and 8. So you should always be unsatisfied from yourself, want more, more, more. Then you are getting there. But when you are looking back, often you are unhappy. So this was a question I was constantly asking yes, that yeah, you should cry when you are a child, you should be nervous for getting there at the top, but at the end you are getting it at the top and you are still very unhappy. So this is the question I wanted to find out when I dive into the spiritual stuff. And once about nervousness, I heard something about Kobe Bryant. I was driving a car, I just pulled the car and like, what? What did he say? Are you aware of his answer or
No, let's hear it.
okay, so he said something very interesting. The journalist asks him, like, during the game, did you find yourself when you are nervous? And he said, yes, I used to, but now not. And he said, the journalist, how? Like, how do you deal? He said something very, very deep. He said, there is no nervousness. There is only ego.
Hmm.
So this is where I dive, and I found like indeed, it's it's when somebody is nervous before the game right there, it's only he or she who is nervous. Other world, they are just living their lives. So their ego just afraid that wanting result, etc. Whatever ego wants. Ego is fear, ego wants something, ego is afraid what will happen if I lose the game, etc. So Kobe dealt it that way. He dealt with nervousness with spiritual way, learning to deal with ego, learning harnessing it, and trying to not to get rid of the ego, but try to keep healthy ego. And this is the way he deals. Like each time some nervousness, he understood there is the ego thing, and he tried to understand from where this what does it ego wants. Ego is fear. Ego wants some result. Relax the ego, and then it was okay for him.
Huh. Yeah, it is a profound insight. Wow. I had not heard that before.
Well, Ben, you did so many episodes, and how did you keep discipline? How did you deal with fear? To everything you answered that you loved it. You were excited about it, right? Um, Anything else that helped you? Did you have like strong why? For me, for example, whenever there is happening when I something is wrong in my mindset, I don't really want to work, something I don't want to record this video. One of the things that reminds that helps me going, it's my why, my strong why. And I even have a big article about find a good why. Did you have a why, or it was just love to the things that was pushing you forward?
Yeah, well, I stole that question from you. I ask it on Perpetual Chess sometimes now because like when I interviewed you for Perpetual Chess, we talked about that. And obviously it's a very, very important question to ask yourself. But I mean for what I do for interviewing chess players, I mean, uh the driving force is to try to connect people, to try to help show people that even whether they be a super grandmaster or an amateur who's spending 5 hours a week on chess, trying to gain 100 rating points, they have the same love for the game and they're dealing with a lot of the same struggles. So I just love hearing those stories and hearing how chess can impact people in different ways. I also feel like there's a unique challenge, especially if you're not a professional, in how to incorporate chess into your life, because it can be such a consuming game that you can kind of fall into the abyss, where it might be having a negative effect on your relationships, maybe on your job, maybe on your sleep. I think a lot of chess players, even if they're not at that point currently, they might have had a point in their life where they feel like this game is negatively impacting other aspects of my life and I'm not sure if it's worth it. And I feel like because those questions kind of constantly circle, that's part of what makes conversations about like a life in chess super interesting to me, because everyone has to grapple with these questions and everyone's answer might end up being a little bit different. But hearing these, hundreds of stories maybe helps you put the pieces together yourself of exactly what role chess will play in your life.
Did you put pieces exactly in their places, or you are still putting it?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, it comes down to imposter syndrome, because I work less hard on my chess than probably 95% of the people that I interview. So that's kind of maybe even higher. So that's kind of where I've landed. I still love chess. I still do chess every day. But when push comes to shove, I often go through periods where I just don't have the drive to work hard on my game. But I try not to like pretend, that I'm grinding for hours a day, trying to get better. And I still do compete, and that does still keep me motivated to a sense. But yeah.
From 2016 that you started Perpetual Chess Podcast till now, how much have you improved? How much rating has you raised? As people often say, like rating, how much you raised?
Yeah, I might be down 40 points USCF. FIDE, of course, I've lost hundreds of points, but honestly, with what's going on with the FIDE ratings, I don't want to make excuses, but FIDE rating deflation has been tough. And in USCF, I was in the 2100s then. I'm in the 2100s now. So I think I might be a little bit lower rated, but basically I feel like I wasn't working hard when I started, and I have put in a lot of work. So I feel like I'm a little stronger, but other people have probably improved more. Like relative to the rating pool, I'm probably weaker. So yeah, I haven't improved a ton compared to other people, but it doesn't really bother me as long as I'm upfront about it. I just don't want to misrepresent is my main goal.
Your main goal, which one?
Yeah, I'm just saying I wouldn't want to say like I just wrote a book about chess improvement, and I wouldn't want to say in the book like, I'm a huge expert of how to grow your rating. So I try to tell it from the perspective of, here are some of the best stories and the best advice that's been shared by these very accomplished people, and here's how chess again plays a role in my life, and the decisions I've come to about the amount of effort I'm willing to put in to try to get better at chess. And it hasn't proven to be enough for me to get better at chess. And honestly, I wouldn't really expect it to. Chess is too hard of a game for you to play a couple games of blitz a day, and maybe look at openings for 10 minutes and expect to be able to compete, at the master level, or grow at the master level. So I just try to be honest about that and talk about like, if you wanted to work hard, this would be a good way to do it. I work hard on other things, but I'm not working extremely hard on my chess right now.
And what do you love more, to do Perpetual Chess Podcast or to play competitive chess?
I bet you know the answer. What do you think?
Podcast, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So do you think if you loved chess as much as you love doing the Perpetual Chess Podcast and interviewing people, talking to people, you would raise your rating if there was more love to playing?
Maybe a little bit, but it's hard. I mean, in your 40s, you're swimming upstream. So it's, I might be able to get like, your friend James Altucher, like he's putting in a ton of work and facing some challenges. And obviously he's got a lot of resources, so it's tough. I wouldn't necessarily assume that I would, which is another thing that, again, people have to grapple with when they play chess. Like, and I say this in my book too, you have to be, I may not say it explicitly in these words, but you've got to be aware you might spend hundreds of hours, thousands of hours studying this game. And, at least if you're going to measure yourself by rating, it might not go up. You better know that going in.
So what's the answer? Do you recommend like just love what you are doing?
Yeah, and don't measure yourself so much by rating. I mean, there's still tons you can learn from chess, and I do still play tournaments because I learned something about myself, about overcoming adversity. It's sort of like a microcosm of sort of facing your own mortality and fallibility when you make these stupid blunders and you're just like, "Oh my God, what is wrong with me?" You know? But then you just have to sit there and think about it. Like, and as we're recording this, like Vida just won the FIDE Grand Swiss. And I thought that was like an amazing microcosm of what a chess player goes through because of he just had this colossal blunder in round one against Erwin Lamy, to be winning. And then a few moves later to have it be even and then to lose and be in one of the strongest chess tournaments in history and not one of the favorites and to pick yourself up and win the tournament. I mean, I found that so inspiring, and it's not inspiring in the sense where I'm going to start studying chess 20 hours a day, but like those mini lessons are what we all can have. And they're hopefully you can take them beyond the chessboard so that even if you're not getting better at chess, you're sort of dealing with those feelings and being able to propel you forward in other aspects.
True. This is also the advice I'm having for chess lovers, because we are having many students who are like most of them, like not just our students, overall the chess world, are very obsessed with improving writing. Like the first thing, I want to raise this amount of writing to get 2,000, 1,500, 1,000, or 2,500 master level titles. And I feel this is one of the society's traps, to all the time be obsessed with results. This is also one of the traps of our ego, that it wants all the time X things to be satisfied with something. And recently I tweeted this, that if you are obsessed more with the outcome, with the results, than what you are doing, there is something wrong with your values. There is something wrong with your system. You should think about. So if you are not loving what you are doing more, and you are loving more the outcome, the moment that you will get that rating, there is something totally wrong. So you should just enjoy. If you are not enjoying it, and at the end you get there, you will not be happy anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly I agree with you, but the thing is the rating is there. Like Lichess has like Zen mode, you can turn it off and try not to think about it. But if you're playing like, over the board competitive chess, it's right there next to your name, so it's really hard not to
difficult.
think about.
Yeah, it's difficult. True. Ben, after doing so many episodes, you started to write the book. Tell me how did it come, the idea? Did you have in your mind that one day I will write, and like you were procrastinating starting the podcast, you were procrastinating the book? How did it happen?
Yeah, the procrastinating mainly started once the book was underway, but I mean, I have always enjoyed writing. And at some point, New in Chess approached me and we brainstormed a couple ideas and we kind of settled on sort of the compiled chess improvement advice. And then I started to write a little bit. This was a couple years ago. I would try to do a little bit every day, but it would end up being about a little bit half the work days, something like that. But the material was slowly accumulating, and I did find it to be really helpful, especially as I got to the later stages, because I mean, obviously it's such a mass of material at this point, all the interviews I've done, that it gave me a chance to sit and try to synthesize, like, what do I think of all these questions myself? And again, because I enjoy the process of writing, and because I felt like going back through the archives and trying to remember all this material and sort of think of things by theme, I felt like, I think Tim Ferriss at some point, and actually I think this was relating to podcasts, or he says, when you're thinking about starting a new endeavor, you want to think about starting something where even if you lose, you can win. Basically being the idea that, like, if your primary objective isn't achieved, you're able to achieve something else out of it. So like this book, like, it might not make me rich, fair to say that it won't make me rich, but the act of having spent all this time going through all the material, it really gave me a chance to sort of synthesize everything, I think, and to remember a lot more of the insights that have been shared through all these interviews.
Say it again, please. What did Tim Ferriss said? When you lose, but you still win? What was the quote?
He said, if you're considering trying a new project, then you want to try one where even if you lose, meaning even if you don't get what your number one goal was for it, you can still win in some other way. You can still get some other benefit from it that makes it worthwhile.
Wow, that is very cool. Very, very cool sentence. Very cool.
Yeah.
Similar thing I've heard from Elon Musk when somebody asked him about the SpaceX project. Like he said, I knew that there is bigger chance that we will fail than we will succeed. But he said, it's good to pursue something that you know that there is lots of chance that you will not make it, but you know that even at the end you don't make it, you know that your try was worth it.
Right.
So it's another way putting that there is some other type of winning. And by the way, about Tim Ferriss, have you read his Tools of Titans?
I've read some of it. It's a big book, so I haven't read the whole thing.
The Tools of Titans of Tim Ferriss was one of the first books that I read after starting Chessmod. I started reading really after starting Chessmod. I mean, I used to read some lots of chess books,
right?
But really read other books, business book, philosophical books, other etc. I started after starting Chessmod. Tim Ferriss Tools of Titans was one of the first, and when I saw your podcast, Perpetual Chess Podcast, I felt like, yeah, Ben should do something like Tim Ferriss have done. When Tim Ferriss, like just you, he interviewed so many successful people, including Arnold Schwarzenegger, Olympic champions, like top CEOs and others. And then he wrote the book. I said, like, well, one day Ben also should do that. Now, I haven't seen your book, and I was brainstorming, should I get your book first and then interview you, or but it's better to go this way and with the audience discover what is about the book. So I decided to go with the second approach, when with the audience I will discover what is about the book. So tell it, please, is it with the Tim Ferriss format when he is like 2 pages about every guest, or it's you took overall? How what's the format of your book?
Yeah, so I looked at books like that. I thought about it in terms of how to format the book, but that's not what I ended up doing. I ended up doing it by chess improvement theme, but it's pretty philosophical in nature. It's, you know, the book is still being released. I mean, I'm happy that so far I'm getting mostly positive feedback about it, but like there haven't been a ton of reviews or anything about it yet. But my friend, Dr. Christopher Chabris, who's a cognitive scientist, who's been on the podcast a bunch of times, he compared it to like a Jonathan Rowson book. Like it does have sort of, and you know, obviously that guy's a genius and I'm not, so I'm not, you know, I'm not comparing myself to him, but it has a same sort of philosophical bent in terms of especially like Chess for Zebras. So, but to more directly answer your question, the way that the book is structured is it's in 4 parts, and the first part is called The 4 Pillars of Chess Improvement. So, you know, again, I'm drawing on insights from trainers like Ramesh and Agard, and you know, stuff Nakamura said when I interviewed him, and lots of top players as well as accomplished amateurs. So these are the 4 things that you want to have as a part of your chess life if you're working to improve. And then the second part is stuff that people argue about.
Sorry. First part, the 4 pillars, what are they?
Oh, see, I thought it might be fun, since I know you haven't read the book yet. I thought it might be fun if I have you guess. What would you think they would be?
I have written an article about how to get better at chess.
Yeah, I read it. It just came out, right?
How to get better at chess?
I think
maybe some months already. So I put it this. I named it how to get better at chess. What was the? I forgot the title of the article. Three pillars and secrets or something. Wait a second. Uh, because it was 4. In my case, it was also 4. So that's why I asked
Okay.
what was their fourth. Okay, so I called How to Get Better at Chess, the 3-step formula and the secret sauce.
Okay.
So it's like in my case it was also 4. So it's interesting if there is overlap with your 4 pillars. So my 4 pillars are this: it's study, practice, fix. This is the system. And
Right.
this is for me, it is like whatever you want to do, it's study, practice, fix. So even if I'm trying to improve my writing, even now I have this study, practice, fix. So James Altucher is my mentor in writing.
That's
I was
great.
lucky; I got one of the best writers
Right. Yeah.
now mentoring me. So study, he's giving me books to read. He's giving me things to read. I am reading lots of other people. So this is my study part. I'm practicing, so I'm writing articles a lot. Even I'm trying to write some just stories from the lives, just to write. So whenever I study something, I practice it. And the third is fixing. So once a week with James, we are going through my writings, and he's fixing this, that. And each time with the fixing, I'm also learning. So this is like study, practice, fix. It's for me, whatever you want to do. It's you want to learn business, you want to learn how to do chess podcast, you should do still think, study how to do that, practice, and then fix. And fix, by the way, this is the one of the things I'm always doing. And even at the end, when I click the button, stop the recording, I will ask you a question. What feedback do you have for me? Because this is fix for me. You have been in podcast much more than me, so this is part of fix. So it's study, practice, fix is the first 3, and the fourth that I called secret sauce, it is a mindset. And the mindset includes why do you do that? The love that you said, yeah, the love for Perpetual Chess podcast that pushed you forward. So the fourth for me was mindset. So study, practice, fix, mindset. This was my 4 pillars. Now tell what is there in your book.
Okay. Yeah. So mine has different wording, of course, but there's definitely some overlap. So one primary difference, and again, what you're doing is applicable to like all, like you say, anything that you're trying to get better at. But mine was slightly more chess focused. So my number 1 is play competitive games. So I'm saying not just like, playing I think I say in the book, like not just like playing bullet on your phone on the toilet, but actually playing a game that feels important to you. Ideally a tournament game, but if it's like an online training game and it feels like it really matters, the important thing is that you're fired up for it. You're fully engaged, and that way if you make a mistake it will really leave a mark. And number 2 is review, so that's fix. And number 3 is solve exercises, solve puzzles. So that's practice. But number 4 in my book is community, because I just argue that chess is too hard. And I look at, I tell some stories about like Bobby Fischer and Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand and like how they came up in the chess world, and also tell some stories about some amateurs and how they sort of went and found the community. But the bottom line is like that can be like joining something like Chessmood, getting a coach, but also just finding peers. It can even be just like finding a local role model. But the bottom line is, because getting better at chess is so hard, and it's an individual game, you're marked on your own. A lot of people sort of come into it on their own. I think especially people from the Queen's Gambit sort of generation might have just seen the show and gotten into it and not necessarily known anyone in it. But I'm just making the argument that you have to have a network if you're going to stick with it. There's just no way otherwise. So for me, those are the 4 pillars.
Got it. What's the second part of the book about?
So the second part of the book it's called Other Aspects of Chess You Might Want to Work On. So it's stuff that people kind of argue about, like how much should I study openings? Do I need to study endgames on their own, or can I just review endgames when they come up in my games? Do I need to memorize all these technical endgames if I'm like an amateur player? Do I need to be doing endgame studies? Do I need to work on my blindfold skills? Is speed chess good for my chess, or is it bad for my chess? So all these kind of recurring debates that have occurred over the course of the podcast, I kind of lay out the arguments for both sides and kind of offer my opinion on those. That's the second part of the book.
4 parts you said, yeah? The book.
Yeah, 4 parts.
Okay. And the third part?
So the third part is right up Chess Mood's alley. It's away from the board ways to work on your game. So it's about like maintaining routines, setting habits, how to approach a tournament when you're at the tournament. It's about like exercise and mindfulness. There's a chapter in there about playing against kids, like how to psychologically deal with playing against kids. So yeah, it's about like when I'm not actively working on chess, what can I do that might help my chess? And if it doesn't help my chess, it'll at least like it might help me grow as a person anyway.
Cool. Very, very, very cool chapter.
Yeah.
And the fourth?
The fourth part is just tools of improvement. So I just go through the sort of major methods of chess improvement, chess books then and now. Do people still need chess books? Lichess and chess.com, how to use them properly, chess base, stuff like that. So I would say the fourth is, if you're like a 2000 level player who's been playing for 15 years, you don't need me to tell you what a Lichess study is. So there's some stuff in there that you'd be familiar with, but I try to tell enough stories in there, and sort of share enough tips that have been shared through the podcast, to make it worthwhile, even if you're an experienced player. But yeah, the fourth part is called Tools of Improvement, and it goes through sort of the major chess tools.
You also shared the interesting stories that you have learned, that you have listened to during the episodes of your podcast.
Have I shared them?
Yeah, like stories, like interesting stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like, so a lot of them are sort of tangentially related to or they kind of like set the stage for how things have changed. So Peter Svidler did this Q&A for Chess24 that I watched a long time ago, and then one of the times I interviewed him, I got to follow up on it. And this is a story, Avtek, someone like you've heard a million stories like it, but someone newer to chess maybe hadn't. But he told the story of growing up in like late Soviet era St. Petersburg and waiting to get the chess informant, for listeners who aren't familiar, it was basically this chess encyclopedia of games that came out twice a year that had all the grandmaster games that took place in the world. And this is basically when computers were chess-based was like just getting invented. So there were no real databases. Opening books were like slow to come out, and you may or may not get your hands on them. And especially like a professional track player like him, like a stronger player like him, it was also a rare opportunity to find out what openings your opponents played. And in those days, even top players often had fairly predictable repertoires. So anyway, I mean, Svidler just tells this story of like getting on the list at this store on Nevsky Prospect in the center of St. Petersburg to be one of the people who gets one of the 50 informants that comes to his city, and like having the date circled on his calendar where he's going to go get this like coveted piece of information. So in the Tools of Chess Improvement story, like I tell that story to just sort of set the stage for like how spoiled we are now, that
how spoiled we are now. It's good.
Yeah.
Good sentence.
Yeah. That we just have amazing resources as far as the eye can see. And we've got chess engines that always tell us the answer. And it wasn't that long ago. We're talking about like 1990, where he just wants this one nugget of information and he just can't wait, he just can't wait to get it.
I'll tell you one funny story about this chess informants.
Okay.
It was, so Svidler started to play chess much earlier than me, but even it was in 2000 something. So I was probably 13 years old. And it was the only time in my life when on April 1, the full day, I was fooled. So every April 1, we were trying at our family to fool each other somehow, to make some jokes. And often I was succeeding to fool others, but no one fooled me except once that my dad did with me. So I was 13 years old, I was sleeping, and my father is coming and like, wake up. And like, what happened? And your sister accidentally poured the water on all your copies of your encyclopedias. I had one big shelter of all the encyclopedias, so I couldn't get them because the chess chess house of Armenia had just one informant of all of them. You couldn't get it, but you could
Right.
take and copy that. So I was asking my coach to get that. So I would go copy that Xerox, then it was. So and I had lots of copies of all these informants. And my father is saying, your sister pulled water on your encyclopedias. And I'm rushing from my bed. Oh, my encyclopedias, running. And then he's, oh, happy full day, happy April 1. So myself, I had this all the encyclopedias and everything. When now you just have ChessBase, you have all games there annotated, that. You have so many tools now that yeah, you put it right. It's spoiled. It's
Yeah.
so easier now. But at the same time, there is information overwhelm, yeah, like
Yeah.
chaos. So I said once somebody asked me, is it easier now to improve? I said, yes, definitely it is easier because so many things, so many books, so many software, so many websites, like even chess mode, there haven't been like 10 place where you could watch grandmasters recording a video explaining some opening with my friends. We would spend a year to learn how to play against Scandinavian one, which you cannot just go to Chessmode or Chessable, find some course grandmaster explaining something, so it's spoiled. But at the same time, there is information house
Yeah.
that it's very difficult to deal with. By the way, about spoiling, Fisher studied Russian just to understand the chess books and chess magazines, and that then it was mostly written in Russian. Now there are so many things in English, yeah. And you learned Russian for that?
Yeah, similar. I mean, not to compare myself to Bobby Fischer by any means, whether I wouldn't want to as a chess player or as a person. Um, but but yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia, and there was a pretty significant Russian emigre community. So a lot of sort of old Russian emigre masters, and obviously I'm from the generation where eventually people like Yermolinsky and Kaidanov and like Ivanov and all these Soviet players started to make their way to the United States. So when you would play in the big tournaments like the World Open in the United States, you would hear Russian. You would hear Russian in the halls all the time. And at some of the smaller tournaments, Russian, if you were playing a Russian player, this was pre-engine days, but people would be having conversations in the middle of their games and they would be speaking in Russian. And they didn't have the people always wondered, are they talking about chess? Are they sharing moves with each other? So when I got to college in high school, I was a good student in some regards, but I was not a great language student. And the way it works in the United States is if you do well enough in language, you can sort of pass out of studying at a college. But I was a bad French student in high school. So when I got to college, I needed to either start over in French or start over in another language. And Russian hadn't been available in my high school, but now it was at university. So I thought, well, I'd like to know what these guys are saying during my game. So I started studying Russian for that reason and ended up living in St. Petersburg for a few months and majoring in Russian. Sadly, I didn't keep up with it. So that's one area where I'm really embarrassed is if I try to speak Russian, but I did used to speak it decently.
Давай попробуем. Ты говоришь по-русски, да?
Нет. Yeah. Я
Немножко.
забил.
So when you started to learn Russian, instead of learning just the most common words, you were starting to learn how to say rook in Russian, how to say the knight in Russian. So you count this teacher and the cheaters and say, you say it konь, this is knight,
Yeah,
you say it.
exactly.
Cool. Ben, in your book, you have lots of stories, so I'm not going to ask you to tell all of them. So the chess lovers can take your book and read all of them. Myself, I'm going to do that. But what's the one story that changed you, changed the way you are thinking, changed something in you?
Wow, I got to think about that one for a minute. Let me think. Well, I mean, in terms of chess, I mean, this is not in terms of chess advice that I think of a lot, I mean, Christoph Zalecki and Erwin Lamy both talking about sort of the fact that chess is a game of mistakes, and that your opponent needs to make a mistake. Basically, you're not going to win a game out of brilliancy alone. Your opponent needs to do something wrong. So I try to take that to heart in terms of how I approach the game. I'm working on becoming more practical. So I definitely place more of an emphasis on not screwing up when I play than like looking for brilliancies or trying to be perfect. But I'm sure that there are other stories that have had like a beyond the chessboard emphasis, like impact on me. But I'm drawing a blank. So maybe we can come back to that question a bit later.
Super. Ben, you started Perpetual Chess Podcast, then you started then you wrote this book. What's your next step?
So I have an idea I'm working on a Chessable course that's more beginner oriented. It's tactics oriented. So that'll keep me busy for a couple months. But it's not like it's not a lifetime repertoire. I'm not pretending to be a grandmaster. Basically the idea is it's, going to be geared for like 1,000 to 1,200 players, and try to help them with a specific aspect of tactics. So to the extent that I have extra time, I'll be working on that in the coming months. And beyond that, I haven't decided yet. I mean, longer term, I'll see how this book is received. I may decide to write something else, or pump out some more courses or something like that. But I'm not, I enjoy creating content. So, as long as, that's sort of my main goal is, in addition to the podcast, I'm doing like a weekly newsletter now. And so different content in different aspects, and we'll see what resonates with people.
Whatever you start, there should be excitement and love.
For sure.
Otherwise you just don't start it.
Yeah. It sounds like you're speaking from experience there.
Yeah. Very cool. All right, Ben, let me ask you the last question, the question I'm asking everyone. You have lots of tips, advice there in your book that people will find, but still, what is the one thing you recommend to chess lovers who wants to enjoy this game and improve at the same time?
Enjoy the game and improve at the same time. Well, I mean, I'll quote Willie Hendricks from my interview. He's written a couple great books. But one line that he said that definitely resonated with me is the big secret is there is no secret. And he had another quote that I kind of build up to in the book, and I will reveal now, which is that quantity is the best quality. Basically, I took that to mean, at the end of the day, the amount of time you put in is going to be the most important thing. People love to ask, like, how should I divide my study time? Should it be 20% openings or 40% openings? But the bottom line is there's just so much to learn if you want to get better at chess. And again, this is why I've come to the reluctant decision that I just don't spend a ton of time working on my own chess because there's just so much to do. It's like it can feel like pouring water in a bucket with a hole in it, so, you just keep pouring and keep pouring. So, I'm not saying that people should give up by any means, but they just want to proceed with intent in terms of like the role that chess plays in their lives and really take the long view, really think like, I do cite some exemplars like Neil Bruce, who's been on the podcast and has built a pretty big Twitter following. He's just like at least a little bit every day, and hopefully more, but just brick by brick, slowly work on things. But you shouldn't expect miracles, and you shouldn't. You've got to be, if you're putting in the work and you're doing a process that you can be proud of, then whatever happens, like the improvement that you seek. I say this in the book too, like it may not necessarily come in terms of your rating going higher, but you may learn enough from the whole process that you find the endeavor worthwhile nonetheless. That's the hope, at least.
At the end, we came back to what Tim Ferriss said. Yeah, say it again. Losing.
Yeah.
How was it?
That you find, if you're starting a new project, start one where even if you lose, you can still win.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you for all the years of job you have done for the chess world. Thank you for everything.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. And listeners, the book is called Perpetual Chess Improvement. And I don't expect you to go listen to 500 hours of Perpetual Chess, but this book, you can read it in about 6 hours and you'll get a lot of the highlights. So,
what is the easiest way for people to get the book? Is it Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on Kindle already. It's coming out on, I don't know when this will be out, but it's coming for Amazon shipping November 15th, and it's on Forward Chess and the New in Chess reader, and New in Chess is shipping, and eventually it won't be hard to find. Right now it's a little hard to find.
Thank you very much, Ben.
All right, great to chat, Avtik. Thank you.
Champions, I'm not going to recommend you buying his book as I have not read it yet myself, which I'm going to do and later share my opinion. However, it is clear that Ben has put his best effort into extracting all the valuable information from the podcast, aiming to help chess lovers. I will include the link in the description along with all the other links mentioned in the episode. Feel free to share your comments about our conversation, Ben's thoughts, and his book if you have read it already. And I will see you next time, my friends. Stay awesome.